When my best friend's older brother moved in with us, I didn't think much of it. I mean, he was just crashing for a bit, 3 weeks max, according to Jamie. That was the whole plan. Short term. Chill. And to be fair, at first, it was. His name's Ethan, and if I had to describe him in one word, it'd be confident. Not cocky, not in your face loud, just comfortable in his own skin in a way that made everyone else around him feel like they were playing catch-up. Tall, always in those fitted tees that clung just right. Hair that looked like it never needed styling. He was 5 years older than us. Had that sort of man energy that made me feel like I was still figuring out how to adult properly. I had known Ethan forever, of course. Jamie and I had been best friends since freshman year, and Ethan had always been the older brother off in the background, home for holidays, occasionally showing up at parties, always with a different girl on his arm. He was the cool sibling, the one their mom never had to nag, the one who got out of our little hometown and moved to Chicago for grad school and jobs and whatever else cool people do in cities. But then he showed up at our shared apartment one rainy Thursday with 2 duffel bags, a tired smile, and a shrug. Job ended. Lease ended. I just need a place to crash while I figure shit out. Jamie didn't hesitate. Dude, stay as long as you need, which was cool, until it wasn't. See, the thing is, Ethan started making the place feel different. Not bad. Just different. He cooked. Like, actual meals. He fixed the broken closet door we'd been ignoring for months. He made coffee in the morning and offered me a mug, like we were part of the same sleepy ritual. And he'd stay up late watching dumb action movies with us, but sometimes I'd catch him glancing at me during the quiet scenes. Like really looking. The first time it happened, I thought I imagined it. But then it kept happening. Subtle things. The way he'd sit a little too close on the couch. The way his hand would brush my arm and linger for a second too long. The way he'd ask if I wanted to split a beer, even when there were plenty left. It messed with my head. Because I liked it. And that was a problem. Jamie didn't know I was gay. I mean, he'd probably guessed. I wasn't exactly hiding it, but I'd never said the words out loud. And Ethan? Ethan was straight. As far as I knew. Girls, Tinder dates, stories about weekend hookups, that's what I knew of him. But late one Saturday, everything shifted. Jamie was out for the night, some date he didn't want to call a date, and it was just me and Ethan at home. He made pasta. We split a bottle of cheap wine. Music was playing, some soft indie playlist I usually save for solo nights, and the air was different. We were standing in the kitchen, both slightly tipsy, and he looked at me, really looked at me and said, "You're different than I remember." I laughed it off. "Yeah, well, I'm not 17 anymore." "No," he said, voice lower. "You're not." I didn't know what to say to that, so I didn't say anything. I just stared back, heart thudding in my chest like it was trying to warn me or dare me. And then he stepped closer. Like, close, close. Close enough that I could smell the wine on his breath. Close enough that my brain short-circuited. "You ever wonder," he said slowly, "what would happen if we didn't pretend we didn't notice these things?" I blinked. "What things?" He tilted his head, eyes locked on mine. "The way you look at me. The way I've been looking back." My mouth went dry. Aren't you straight?" He paused. "That's the thing. I thought I was. But lately, I don't know. You make me feel curious." And I didn't know what to say. Because I'd wanted to hear those words. But now that they were real, now that he was standing there in front of me with this raw honesty, I was frozen. "I'm not asking for anything," he said, quieter now. "I just needed to say it. I've been thinking about it too much." I nodded, barely. And then he smiled. Just a small, crooked smile, and stepped back, like he'd just admitted to something reckless and beautiful, and was waiting to see if the world would punish him for it. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if everything had changed, or if it had just finally begun. The next morning was brutal, not because anything happened, but because nothing did. I woke up feeling like my nerves had been stretched thin and left out to dry. I barely slept, my brain playing the kitchen scene over and over on loop. Ethan's voice, that little crooked smile, the quiet, heavy pause before he stepped away. And now it was morning, and the apartment smelled like toast and coffee and Ethan. He was already in the kitchen when I walked out, shirtless, in gray sweatpants that hung way too low on his hips. He glanced up and gave me a small, unreadable nod. "Morning," he said. I nodded back, trying not to look at his chest, or his arms, or the way his hair stuck up in all directions like he just rolled out of bed. "You want coffee?" he asked, already pouring a second mug. "Sure," I muttered, my voice raspier than usual. He handed it to me, our fingers brushing for a second longer than necessary. I hated how charged everything felt, how even this tiny moment made my stomach twist. We didn't talk about what he said the night before. Not that day, not that week, actually. He didn't bring it up, and I didn't know how to. I wasn't sure if it was a moment of tipsy vulnerability, or if he meant it, or if he regretted it and hoped I'd let it slide. And honestly, I was too scared to ask. But things changed after that, not obviously. Just in the spaces between, like he started hanging out in the living room more when I was there. If I was gaming, he'd sit behind me on the couch and pretend to scroll on his phone, but I could feel him watching. Not in a creepy way, more like he was just curious. Or when we were in the kitchen and I'd be washing dishes, he'd come up beside me just to grab a glass but stand a little too close. His arm would brush mine. His voice would drop a little lower when he asked something. I noticed it all, every time, and I hated how much I liked it. Then one night, it all boiled over. Jamie was out again. He'd been seeing someone new, and most weekends he was gone. I was in my room, editing photos on my laptop, when there was a knock at my door. I looked up. "Yeah?" It opened slowly, and Ethan stepped in. He didn't say anything right away, just leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, like he was trying to gauge something. "You good?" I asked, setting my laptop aside. He shrugged. "Can't sleep." I nodded, unsure what else to say. Then, after a beat, he said, "I've been thinking about that night." My pulse spiked instantly. "What night?" "You know what night." I looked down, pretending to focus on the scuff on my floor. "You were drunk." "I wasn't," he said, barely tipsy. I remember everything I said. That shut me up. He took a slow step into my room. "I meant it, Liam. I don't know what the hell it is, or what it means, but I haven't been able to stop thinking about you." I swallowed hard. "Ethan, you don't have to say anything. He looked frustrated suddenly, like the words weren't lining up the way he wanted. "It's weird for me too, okay? I've never looked at a guy like this before." "And now?" I asked, my voice quiet. He let out a breath, stepping closer until he was right in front of me. Now I can't stop. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. He knelt a little, bringing his face level with mine. "Can I?" I didn't let him finish. I kissed him. It was stupid and impulsive and exactly what I'd wanted to do for weeks. And when his hands found my waist, when he kissed me back like he'd been holding it in forever, I stopped overthinking. It didn't matter that he was Jamie's brother. It didn't matter that I wasn't sure what he wanted this to be. All that mattered was that, for the first time in a long time, something felt right. When we pulled apart, we just stared at each other. Then he whispered, "Well, guess that answers that." I laughed, breathless. "Yeah." He kissed me again, slower this time, like he wasn't in a rush to figure it all out. And maybe neither was I. The next morning was terrifying. I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it. I woke up in my own bed, alone, but the panic was instant. Like, full-on stomach sinking, brain fog dread. Not because I regretted what happened, but because I had no idea what had happened. After that those kisses, Ethan and I didn't talk much. He stayed for maybe 15 more minutes in my room, lying on the edge of my bed like he didn't quite know what to do with his body. I remember we laughed about something stupid, and then he yawned and said, "I should crash," and then he left. Just like that. So I was left with my overthinking brain and zero information. Was that a one-time thing? Did it mean something? What if Jamie found out? Would he care? Should I feel guilty? I didn't even hear Ethan in the apartment that morning. When I tiptoed out of my room and peeked into the kitchen, it was empty. His bedroom door was closed. No sign of him. Just a note from Jamie on the fridge. Going hiking with Marla. Back later. Which left me alone with my thoughts and a silence that suddenly felt way too heavy. Around noon, I was on the couch, scrolling my phone for the 5th time when Ethan's door creaked open. My heart immediately jumped into my throat. He walked into the living room like nothing had happened. "Hey," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. I was knocked out. That whine hit harder than I thought. "Yeah," I said, casual as I could, setting my phone down. "No worries." He paused, his eyes scanning me for something. "You okay?" "Yeah, you?" He nodded, slow, then took a seat on the opposite side of the couch, which somehow made everything feel even weirder. There was this silence between us that wasn't exactly uncomfortable, but it was thick with unspoken stuff. "So," I finally said, not sure where I was going with it. "So," he echoed, a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. I turned to him. "About last night." "Yeah." Neither of us spoke for a second. Then he said, "I don't want to pretend it didn't happen, but I also don't want to pressure you into anything." I blinked. "Wait, pressure me?" Ethan leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "Liam, I've never done anything like that before. Not with a guy. But with you, it didn't feel wrong. It just felt like, I don't know, like it made sense." I was quiet for a second, processing that. "I've liked you for a while," I said finally. He turned his head. "Yeah?" I nodded, then added, "Didn't think you'd ever see me that way. Especially not with all the girls you used to bring around." He snorted. Half of that was just trying to figure myself out. The other half was trying not to feel anything I wasn't ready for. "And now?" He met my eyes. "Now I want to be honest. With you. With myself." It was weird, hearing that from him. This guy I'd always seen as out of reach, untouchable. It didn't feel like a dream. It felt real, messy and uncertain and real. "So what do we do?" I asked. Ethan leaned back. "We take it slow. We figure it out. Maybe we keep it between us for now, at least until we know what this is. Jamie's gonna lose his mind." He laughed. "Yeah, probably." There was another pause, but this time it felt easier, lighter. "Want to go get food?" he asked. "I'm starving." I smiled. "Yeah, let's do it." We stood up, and just as I reached for my keys, Ethan touched my arm, gentle, grounding. He looked at me for a moment before kissing me, not rushed, not heated, just soft and sure, like he was saying this is real, and I'm not running from it. And I kissed him back. For the next week, it was like we were in our own little bubble. Nothing dramatic happened. We didn't suddenly start acting like a couple. There were no candlelit dinners or sleepovers, but everything felt different. We'd still watch TV together after dinner, but now Ethan would sit closer. Sometimes our thighs would touch. Sometimes he'd bump my knee under the coffee table like it was a private joke. It was subtle, intimate, and I found myself looking forward to the smallest things, like hearing his footsteps in the morning, or catching him watching me while I cooked, or those little half smiles he'd throw me when Jamie wasn't paying attention. Because, yeah, Jamie still had no idea, and that made things tricky. It's not that we were hiding something bad, but Ethan was Jamie's older brother, and I was Jamie's best friend. There was this unspoken rule, don't go there, and we'd gone there, and we're planning to keep going. But the longer we kept it secret, the heavier it felt, especially when Jamie would say stuff like, "Man, I'm glad Ethan's staying here for a bit. He actually gets your weird jokes." Or, "You two have been hanging out a lot lately. I swear, it's like you're his emotional support barista." We'd laugh it off. But every joke made the weight settle deeper in my chest. Then one night, it almost fell apart. Jamie had gone out again. Marla was officially his girlfriend now, and he was basically living at her place. I was lying on the couch scrolling TikTok when Ethan came out of the shower, shirtless, towel around his waist, hair dripping. He looked over and smirked. "You always look so serious when you're doom scrolling." "I'm researching important cultural trends," I deadpanned. "Oh yeah, any groundbreaking discoveries tonight?" I shrugged. "Apparently men who wear gray sweatpants are 73% more likely to be hiding something dangerous." He laughed, walked over, and dropped onto the couch next to me, his towel dangerously close to failing its job. "You mean like emotionally or physically dangerous?" "Both." He leaned in a little, still smiling. "You gonna investigate?" I raised an eyebrow. "That a challenge?" Before I could even finish the sentence, he kissed me. It was soft, familiar by now. And every time, it felt just a little more sure. But this time, mid-kiss, the front door clicked. We both froze. I jerked back, panic surging through me. Ethan scrambled upright, the towel almost falling off in the process. Jamie's voice called out from the hallway. "Yo, anyone still alive in here? I forgot my charger." We bolted apart like guilty teenagers. By the time Jamie walked into the living room, I was pretending to scroll again, and Ethan had disappeared into the bathroom, door clicking shut like he'd just realized he was still wet and half naked in a shared apartment. Jamie blinked at me. "Was he in a towel just now?" I shrugged. "Yeah, he just got out of the shower," he snorted, grabbing his charger off the table. "Y'all are so domestic. I'm telling you, you two spend more time together than me and Marla." I forced a laugh. "He's just easy to be around." Jamie gave me a look. "You good, man? You've been weird lately." Weird. That word stuck. "Yeah," I said quickly. "Just tired." He didn't press, just grabbed a protein bar from the counter and waved on his way out. "All right, see you tomorrow. Don't let my brother flash you again." As soon as the door closed, I let out a long breath. Ethan reappeared a few seconds later, fully dressed this time. "Well," he said, rubbing his neck. "That was close." "Too close," I muttered, heart still racing. He looked at me, more serious now. "We can't keep this up forever. He's gonna find out." I nodded. "I know. Maybe we should just tell him?" My chest tightened. "And what if he freaks?" Ethan sat down beside me. "Then he freaks. But I'd rather deal with that than keep kissing you in secret like I'm doing something wrong." I looked at him, his messy hair, his nervous fidgeting, his ridiculously sincere face, and realized something. I didn't want to hide either. I just didn't know if I was ready to face everything that would come next. We didn't tell Jamie the next day. Or the day after that. The idea hung in the air like thick humidity, something we kept pretending we didn't feel, but it made everything heavier. I noticed Ethan growing a little more distant, not in a cold way, just more careful. He'd pause before brushing against me in the hallway. He'd hesitate before sitting too close, like he was trying to help me ease into it, trying not to push. And I appreciated that, I really did, but it also made something inside me ache a little, because the truth was, I wanted more. Not just in secret, not just late-night kitchen kisses and stolen looks across the living room. I wanted real. I just didn't know how to ask for it without blowing everything up. Then, one Friday, it all came to a head. Jamie had planned a game night, just the three of us, like old times. Chips, beer, Mario Kart. Ethan made tacos. I queued up a playlist. Jamie showed up in a loud mood, already talking about work drama before he even had his shoes off. It was normal. Almost. But I kept catching Ethan watching me. And I kept watching him. And somewhere around round 6 of Mario Kart, with Jamie yelling at the screen and Ethan laughing beside me, it hit me. This exact thing, I wanted it to be real. I didn't want to go back to pretending, so I said, screw it. And during a lull in conversation, while Jamie was scrolling through his phone looking for memes, I said, "Hey, Jamie?" "Yeah?" I looked at Ethan for a split second. He gave the tiniest nod, and I took a deep breath. "There's something I need to tell you." Jamie looked up. "Okay, what's up?" I glanced at Ethan again, then said it before I could chicken out. "Me and your brother, we've been seeing each other." Silence. No one breathed. Not even the apartment. Jamie blinked. Wait, like seeing? I nodded. Yeah, for a few weeks now. Jamie looked at Ethan. Are you serious? Ethan held his gaze. Yeah, I am. Another beat of silence passed. Then Jamie leaned back on the couch, arms crossed, looking between us like we'd just confessed to burning down a library. You've been sneaking around behind my back? It's not like that. I started, but he cut me off. Dude, you're my best friend, and you're my brother. What the hell? I didn't want to lie, I said quickly, but it just happened. We didn't plan it. Jamie stood up, rubbing his face. Jesus, this is insane. Look, Ethan said, his voice calm. We didn't know how to tell you, and we weren't sure what this was at first. But it's not a game. Jamie turned to him. So what is it then? Ethan looked over at me. It's real. My stomach flipped. Jamie just stood there, hands on his hips, shaking his head like he was trying to reboot his brain. You guys are seriously doing this? Yeah, I said. We are. He didn't say anything right away. Then, finally, he let out a long sigh and dropped back onto the couch. You're both assholes, he muttered. But I guess I'm not surprised. Wait, you're not mad? I asked cautiously. I'm mad, he said, pointing at us. But mostly because you kept it from me, not because it's happening. I blinked. Seriously? Jamie shrugged. You could have told me sooner. I've known you were into guys for years, dude. My eyes widened. You did? You never shut up about Pedro Pascal and, accidentally, watched Brokeback Mountain like 4 times. I laughed, tension finally starting to unravel from my chest. Jamie looked over at Ethan. And you, Mr. Ladies Man, I did not see this coming. Ethan just raised his hands. Believe me, I didn't either. Jamie shook his head, but there was a smile playing on his lips. If either of you hurts the other, I'm disowning both of you. Fair, Ethan said. And don't be gross in front of me. Also fair, I added. He grabbed the game controller again. Now give me a damn rematch, and no more secret kissing while I'm in the room. We all laughed. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could actually breathe. It's kind of wild how quickly things shifted after that. Once the secret was out, the energy in the apartment relaxed. Like we'd been holding our breath for so long. And now we could finally exhale. Jamie was surprisingly cool about everything. Sure, he threw in the occasional gross if Ethan got too close to me on the couch, and he loved muttering, "Domestic much?" anytime we cooked dinner together. But that was just Jamie being Jamie. Underneath it, he was supportive, protective even. Once, when Ethan left for a weekend job interview out of town, Jamie cornered me in the kitchen and said, "So, you like him for real?" "Yeah," I said, stirring my coffee. "I do." He watched me for a second, then gave a small nod. "Good, because if he hurts you, I'll make him sleep in the bathtub for the rest of his life." Noted. That was the thing about Jamie. He gave me space, but also made it clear I wasn't going through this alone. And Ethan, well, Ethan changed too. Not in a dramatic way. He was still the same guy, the laid-back, funny, thoughtful version of himself I'd started falling for before I even realized it. But now, there was intention behind the little things. He'd bring me coffee without asking how I took it, because he already knew. He'd kiss the side of my neck when he passed behind me in the kitchen. He'd rest his hand on my thigh under the table when Jamie wasn't looking, just to let me know he was there. And at night, when Jamie was out or already asleep, we'd lie on my bed talking for hours. About the city, about his past relationships, about how weird it felt, but also how right. I used to think I had myself all figured out, he told me once, staring at the ceiling. Like, this is who I am, this is who I date, this is my lane, and then you. You're welcome, I teased. He chuckled. You scare me. Why? Because this feels bigger than I expected, and I don't want to screw it up. I turned to him. Then don't. He looked at me, and there was something in his eyes I hadn't seen before. Something unguarded, soft, maybe even a little scared. "I'm trying," he whispered. And he was. I could feel it every day. But just when I thought we'd hit our stride, like we'd figured out this new rhythm of living together, dating, and being honest, life, as it always does, threw us a curveball. Ethan got a job offer. A good one. In Chicago. Full-time. Benefits. His own apartment. The kind of opportunity that didn't come around twice. He told me about it on a Wednesday night, sitting at the dining table with the email pulled up on his laptop. "I wasn't even expecting it," he said, spinning the screen around so I could see. "They fast-tracked the process. Want me to start in 2 weeks." I stared at the email. The congratulations, the details, the Chicago address. "Oh," I said, trying to keep my voice even. He looked at me carefully. "It's a good job." "Yeah. It's amazing. You've been trying to get something like this for months." "But," I shook my head. "No but. You should take it." Ethan leaned back in his chair, rubbing his jaw. "And what happens to us?" I didn't answer right away. Because that question, I'd been dreading it since the moment I saw the city name. "We figure it out," I said finally. He looked skeptical. "Long distance? If we want this bad enough, yeah." He reached across the table and took my hand. "Do you?" I nodded, my throat tight. "Yeah, I do. Then we'll make it work." It sounded simple, but we both knew it wouldn't be. Still, we kissed that night like we meant it, like goodbye wasn't the next thing coming. The 2 weeks flew by. I kept telling myself I was fine, that it wasn't goodbye forever, that people did long distance all the time. But when I helped Ethan load the last of his bags into the Uber, and he stood there on the curb looking at me like he wasn't sure if he should kiss me in front of the driver or just say goodbye, I almost lost it. "I'll text you when I land," he said. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "Yeah." We hugged, tight, too long, not long enough, and then he kissed me. Not rushed, not performative, just a quiet, lingering press of his lips to mine, like a promise. "I'll come back when I can," he whispered against my cheek. "And you? Maybe you visit me next?" I laughed, blinking fast. "Yeah, I will." He got in the car. I stood there until it disappeared around the corner. The apartment felt different after that. Too quiet. Too normal. But also, strangely okay. We texted constantly. Called when we could. Sometimes we'd just fall asleep on FaceTime, barely saying anything. Just being together, even when we weren't. One night, months later, I came home to Jamie on the couch eating pizza. He tossed me a beer and said, "Guess who's flying in next weekend?" My stomach flipped. And the second I saw Ethan again, saw that same crooked smile walking through our front door, it didn't feel like starting over. It felt like picking up exactly where we left off. Because somehow, against all odds, we'd made this thing real.